Living with roommates can sometimes turn into a nightmare scenario. Here are some real-life roommate horror stories that showcase the darker side of shared living arrangements. From the unsettling to the downright terrifying. These tales offer a glimpse into the potential horrors of shared living spaces. Brace yourself because things are about to get creepy. Sarah thought she'd struck gold when she found her new apartment. 2 roommates, cool chicks by the looks of their social media, and a rent that wouldn't break the bank. The first few weeks were great, just like living in a sitcom, movie nights, late night chats, the whole 9 yards, but then things started to get weird. Food would disappear from the fridge, just a yogurt here, some leftovers there, nothing major, but enough to make Sarah raise an eyebrow. It was easy to shrug off at first. Maybe she was just misremembering, right? But then other things started happening, little things. Her toothbrush moved places. Lights flickered on in the middle of the night. It was subtle but unsettling. She brought it up with her roommates, half joking about having a ghost. They laughed it off, said she was being paranoid. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night she was woken by a noise, a rustling sound coming from the attic. The building was old and the attic access was in their apartment. A little hatch in the hallway ceiling. It was always kept locked. The landlord had told them it was full of junk and wasn't safe to go up there. But now, Sarah heard something moving around up there. She grabbed a flashlight, heart hammering in her chest, and slowly pushed the attic door open. The air that hit her was musty and cold, thick with dust. She shone the light into the darkness, and that's when she saw him. A man huddled in the corner, surrounded by boxes. He looked startled, eyes wide with fear. Sarah screamed, scrambling back down the ladder, her roommates rushing into the hallway. They called the police, and it turned out the guy was homeless. Had been squatting in their attic for who knows how long. Sarah had been living with a secret unseen housemate, and it was a nightmare come true. Amanda and Laura were more than friends, they were practically sisters. So when they decided to move in together, it felt like a natural next step. They found a cute 2-bedroom place, decorated it with fairy lights and vintage posters, and for a while it was perfect. Amanda loved having Laura around, someone to share clothes and gossip with, someone to make late-night pancakes with after a night out. But slowly, subtly, something shifted in Laura's behavior. It started with little comments, subtle digs at Amanda's friends, eye rolls when Amanda mentioned going out. Then it escalated to arguments, full-blown screaming matches triggered by the smallest things. Laura would get furious if Amanda spent time with anyone else, accusing her of choosing other people over her. Amanda tried to talk to her, to reason with her, but Laura would just get defensive, claiming Amanda didn't understand the depth of their bond. Then came the night terrors. Amanda would wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding, to find Laura standing over her bed, eyes wide and unblinking, just staring. It happened again and again, each time leaving Amanda more terrified. Laura would deny it in the morning, claiming she had no memory of it, that Amanda must be dreaming. But Amanda knew what she'd seen, felt the chill of Laura's presence in the darkness. She realized she wasn't living with her best friend anymore, but with a stranger. someone who was slowly suffocating her with possessiveness and obsession. Amanda knew she had to get out to break free from Laura's suffocating grip before it was too late. Amanda knew she had to get out to break free from Laura's suffocating grip. To this day, no one knows of her eventual fate. When James moved in with Greg, he thought he'd found a chill, easygoing roommate. Greg was quiet, kept to himself mostly, which suited James just fine. But there was one thing James hadn't noticed during their initial apartment viewings: the clutter. It wasn't immediately obvious, just a stack of boxes here, a pile of newspapers there. But as the weeks went by, the clutter grew, slowly consuming their shared living space. At first, James tried to ignore it. He'd carve out paths through the living room, navigating around towers of old magazines and stacks of clothes. He'd politely ask Greg to maybe tidy up a bit, but Greg would just shrug and mumble something about needing to organize his things. It became a running joke between James and his friends. Lost in Greg's grotto, they'd say, chuckling at his predicament. But the humor faded when the smell started. It was faint at first, a musty odor that James attributed to the old building. But it intensified, becoming a putrid, sickening stench that permeated the entire apartment. One day, James decided he'd had enough. He started digging through the piles of junk, determined to find the source of the smell. It didn't take long. Beneath a mountain of old blankets, he discovered them. Dead animals. Not one, but several, their tiny bodies decomposing in the summer heat. Greg, it turned out, had a habit of collecting stray animals, then neglecting them to the point of death. James was horrified, sickened to his core. He reported Greg to the landlord, who was equally appalled. Greg was evicted, leaving James to deal with the aftermath of his hoarding nightmare. Greg was finally evicted, leaving James to deal with the revolting aftermath of Greg's horrific hobbies. Sarah had been thrilled to find a roommate who seemed like the perfect fit. Another student, similar interests, and a shared love of late-night takeout. Her new roommate, Emily, was friendly, outgoing, and always up for a chat. They fell into an easy routine, sharing meals, studying together, and binge-watching their favorite shows. Sarah felt like she'd finally found the ideal roommate situation. But one day, while cleaning her room, Sarah noticed something strange. A tiny hole in the wall. Almost unnoticeable unless you were looking for it. She brushed it off at first, figuring it was just an imperfection in the old building. But then she found another one, and another strategically placed in her bedroom and bathroom. A chill ran down her spine as a horrifying thought took root. She was being watched. She confronted Emily, who denied any knowledge of the holes. Sarah, unconvinced, decided to investigate further. She checked the rest of the apartment and discovered more holes, leading to a horrifying realization. There was a camera hidden in the air vent, its lens pointed directly at her bedroom. Panic seized her. She called the police, who arrived quickly and confirmed her worst fears. Emily was arrested, and a search of her belongings revealed a collection of hard drives filled with footage of Sarah in her most private moments. The police discovered a whole network of hidden cameras, not just in their apartment, but in other locations as well. Emily, they learned, had a history of stalking and voyeurism. Sarah was devastated, her sense of safety shattered. She moved out immediately, the memory of her roommate's betrayal, a haunting reminder of the insidious ways privacy can be violated. Mike had always considered himself pretty open-minded, accepting of different lifestyles and beliefs. So when his new roommate, Tom, started talking about his involvement in a spiritual community, Mike didn't think much of it. Tom seemed harmless enough, a bit quirky, into meditation and herbal remedies, but overall a decent guy. But as the weeks passed, Tom's spiritual community started to occupy more and more space in their shared apartment, both literally and figuratively. What started with incense meditation sessions escalated into bizarre rituals involving chanting, strange symbols drawn on the walls, and an increasing number of people coming and going at all hours. Mike tried to be respectful, but the atmosphere in the apartment grew increasingly unsettling. Tom's behavior became erratic. His conversations filled with cryptic pronouncements and paranoid ramblings about cosmic energies and ascended masters. Mike found himself walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might trigger one of Tom's intense, unsettling monologues. One night, Mike returned home to find the apartment filled with people dressed in robes, chanting in a language he didn't understand. The air was thick with incense, the walls covered in strange symbols. Tom, his eyes glazed over, approached Mike and handed him a cup of a murky liquid, urging him to join the enlightenment. That was Mike's breaking point. He realized Tom wasn't just a harmless eccentric. He was deeply involved in something sinister, something that threatened to consume him as well. Mike packed his bags, left a note for Tom, and fled the apartment, leaving the unsettling world of Tom's cult behind him. Emily had been excited to move in with Rachel. They'd met in their freshman year of college and had hit it off immediately, bonding over their love of indie music and vintage clothing. Rachel was the life of the party, always up for a good time, and Emily found her infectious energy exhilarating. But as the semesters passed, Rachel's partying started to take a darker turn. Nights out turned into weeks-long benders, her once vibrant personality replaced by a hollowed-out shell of its former self. Emily tried to talk to her, to reason with her, but Rachel would brush her off, claiming she had everything under control. But Emily saw the signs, the empty pill bottles, the slurred speech, the sudden mood swings. She knew Rachel was spiraling, and she felt powerless to stop it. One Saturday night, Emily returned home from a study session to find Rachel passed out on the living room floor, surrounded by empty pill bottles. Panic seized her as she realized the gravity of the situation. She called 911, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse. The paramedics arrived quickly, rushing Rachel to the hospital. Emily stayed by her side, waiting anxiously for her to wake up. When Rachel finally regained consciousness, Emily pleaded with her to seek help, to admit she had a problem. But Rachel refused, her eyes filled with a mix of defiance and shame. Emily realized she couldn't force Rachel to get better, couldn't be her savior. The experience left her shaken, the carefree joy of shared living replaced by the cold reality of addiction. She made the difficult decision to move out, realizing that sometimes the only way to help someone is to protect yourself. She moved out immediately, the memory of her roommate's betrayal a poignant reminder that sometimes even our most horrific and fanciful instincts can prove true.